Now, this is a rare piece in the Sunday Times because usually they don't report on this brazen corruption done by the privateers of the NHS and the big business. And this must be linked with the slogan that Boris Johnson is using for the lockdown, that it is in order to save the NHS, because it seems to be practically impossible to dismantle the NHS in one go. So they are playing at being supporters and fans of the NHS. And there is this admission earlier in the Telegraph, Boris Graph, that these scientists urged Johnson to impose tough kind of lockdown. I mean, this is the inside page of the Sunday Times today, 1st of November 2020, which is disingenuous and misleading because Johnson ignores all the facts, including the fact that Dominic Cummings broke the law, and the fact that so many people are in hunger and poverty, and so many millions of children face hunger. And he forced the MPs, conservative MPs, to vote against feeding the hungry children. Now, there is such a lot of confusion about every aspect of the government behavior that it is impossible to leave one item as if it is uncontested by the evidence and move on to the next one as if that is a seamless kind of logical, cohesive kind of move on the basis of facts and evidence. There is no consistency about facts and evidence, and there is no consistency about the legal obligations and legality and illegality. And there is no consistency about the availability of health care and access to remedies through the courts, regardless of ethnicity agenda and ethnicity-based agenda and religion-based agenda, race-based agenda. So that is the state of society, which is quite significantly nearing the state of what is called anarchy in terms of the behavior of the institutions. And we focus back on the behavior of the institution called the London Borough of Hrs Council, where one of its former employees, Afsana Begum, who is now an MP for Poplar and Limehouse, has been charged with 3 counts of fraud. And as we've been saying, the fact that she has been charged and the fact that it is quite possible that she may be found guilty and even be sent to jail does not mean that the council has brought an end to corruption and abuse in housing allocations and housing rights and housing services. Tower Hamlets Council is one of the most corrupt councils in all of England. And so, therefore, this particular allegation of fraud and the charging of this MP and ex-council employee with these serial frauds warrants examination. I was reading earlier, in an earlier edition of this program today, Sunday, this 1st of November 2020, some of the correspondence that I had exchanged with the Tower Hamlets Council and had been focusing on the published plan about homelessness as published in 2013. And I put a 222-word sentence, a question, formally for the record, to the so-called cabinet meeting chaired by the then incumbent holder of the post, Lutfur Rahman, on the 3rd of July 2013. And the fact that I communicated with Odunoy is the name of an employee at the time in the council. And she was present at the meeting on the 3rd of July 2013, where I presented my question, one sentence question, 222-word question that I had sent to the council on the 2nd of July 2013. As part of my communications with the council regime fronted by Lutfur Rahman, I sent on Thursday, the 4th of July 2013, an email at 16:43 hours UK time to Alibor Chaudhry, who was the closest publicly known confidant working for the regime of Lutfur Rahman. And this is not speculation. This has been put on the record by Richard Morey in his ruling dated the 23rd of April 2015. So I said to Alibor Chaudhry, "Dear Alibor, I left about an hour or so ago a 4-point message with Nasima, who said she was standing in for Kerry Jeeves in relation to work that needs to be done in the council for you. The item below is featured at number 4 of that list." And I went on to say to Alibor, and I will come to that item. I'm looking for it in the accessible section of the emails. And well, while I wait for the other one to show up, I shall read this bit that I sent to a woman called Nicole Layton. Now, Nicole Layton, on the date I sent this particular email, 4th of July 2013, was in post as a PA, personal assistant to Jackie Odunoy. So I said at 15:26 on Thursday, 4th of July 2013, to Miss Nicole Layton, thank you for your short email this afternoon. It must have been produced by Miss Louise Fleming getting in touch with you, your office, after she had had communication from me today. I have since sent a detailed contextual updater email to Miss Odunoy, replying also, copying it also to the official mayor at towerhamlets.gov.uk address, among others, in the context of the democratic say on the accountability by the council to the community in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. Have you received the email I have earlier addressed to Jackie Odunoy? Here it is again. So it is headed Muhammad Haque, following up the question presented to the cabinet 3rd of July 2013, and the decision in response to that question as at that meeting. And the main first beginning sentence says, Dear Miss Odunoy, I have below summarized the evidential and democratic context so that you are better informed of my overall outlook and expectations. Now, this is only a part of it, so let's see if I can find the whole of it. Okay, so this is the full text of the email that I sent to Jackie Odunoy at 15:12 hours on Thursday, the 4th of July 2013. And it reads as follows. Dear Miss Odunoy, I have below summarized the evidential and democratic context so that you are better informed of my overall outlook and expectations. I'm able to confirm that since my presentation of the formal question, which had been compressed into 222 words due to the time restrictions imposed by the council on such presentations, have been in communication with Miss Louise Fleming in the Democratic Services. My understanding is that she has passed on to you the contact details to get in touch with me. I'm sending you this and copying in all the involved post holders in the council to emphasize that question was not a sudden event and that it had a solid evidential background of several decades behind it. So when are you going to be able to follow the statement that was made in your direction by the chairperson yesterday? By chairperson, I of course refer to Lutfur Rahman, who chaired the meeting formally. Of course, he didn't chair the meeting democratically or ethically or morally, but he did chair the meeting. I make that point as well. I'm here referring to my conversation with you earlier this year, not on that date, but before. And that too had references to Colin Cormack, who is named as the council staff concerned with the document that my question yesterday addressed, the homeless strategy. Now, I have to say, before I continue reading the email to Jackie O'Donoghue that I sent to her, and I wrote on the 4th of July, 2013, that Colin Cormack is one of the racist liars and criminals that was on license to do the crimes. And he did the crimes with the knowledge of Lutfur Rahman. And despite the fact that there is no actual admission in writing that Lutfur Rahman knew about that, all the evidence point to the fact that Lutfur Rahman was quite content with Colin Cormack's lying criminality that aided and abetted Lutfur Rahman's fraud and corruption. And by fraud and corruption, I refer here to the Panorama report by the BBC, fronted by John Ware, and the accountants report, external accountants report into Tower Hamlets Council, and the statement by Eric Pickles made on the floor of the House of Commons on the 4th of November 2014. And of course, the contextual references made in the ruling by the election commissioner, Richard Morey, on the 23rd of April 2015. So I go back to that email. This is a reference to the tenants and residents and the families in the Traherne Close, London E1, near Balance Road, London E1, who are by no means the only part of the Tower Hamlets community whose rights have been very seriously undermined and or denied by the organizations, the so-called registered social landlords, or the RSLs, to whom control of the Tower Hamlets Council's housing stock had been transferred. My question to the Cabinet on 3rd July 2013 and the premise of it were based on the factual foundations that had been built I'm going back to the email, which for technical reasons keeps kind of being okay. So there is this series of emails. Let's also read the email that I sent at 16:43 on Thursday, the 4th of July 2013 to Ali Chaudhry. That email I was in the middle of reading earlier before I accessed the email to Jackie O'Donoghue. This is the one. Dear Alibor, I left about an hour or so ago a 4-point message with Nasima, who said she was standing in for Kerry Jeeves in relation to work that needs to be done in the council for you. The item below is featured at number 4 of that list. My question for the attention of you, there is this: what did you make of my presentation of the question yesterday? That is Alibor Chaudhary. This is referring to all the things about audit, transparency, accountability that you know have been at the forefront of my communications on housing. All aspects of the LBTH Council's legal and democratic and social remits in Tower Hamlets since at least September 2011. And it's signs of best wishes, Muhammad Haque. Evidential note in context. Also appointed the Secretary and the Legal Affairs Coordinator of THREC, the Tower Hamlets Race Equality Council. And this email that I am passing through now is the one that was sent to Nicole Layton. And this is the one that I sent to Jackie O'Donoghue at 15:12 hours on Thursday, the 4th of July, 2013. And I shall be reading this all over again in case there is any gap in reading the stuff again. Dear Ms. O'Donoghue, I have below summarized the evidential and democratic context so that you are better informed of my overall outlook and expectations. I am able to confirm that since my presentation of the formal question, that was on the 3rd of July, that is the day before this email, which had been compressed into 222 words due to the time restrictions imposed by the Council on such presentations, I have been in communication with Ms. Louise Fleming in Tower Hamlets Council's Democratic Services. My understanding is that she has passed on to you the contact details to get in touch with me. I'm sending you this and copying in all the involved post holders in the council to emphasize that the question was not a sudden event and that it had a solid evidential background of several decades behind it. So when are you going to be able to follow the statement that was made in your direction by the chairperson yesterday? As I have explained earlier, the chairperson there was Lutfur Rahman, although he chaired it immorally and dishonestly, as I have explained earlier, and can explain any time again if the legal evidential requirements warrant it. I'm here referring to my conversation with you earlier this year, conversation with Jackie O'Donoghue, and that too had references to Colin Cormack, who is named as the council staff concerned with the document that my question yesterday addressed, that is the homelessness strategy. And as I was saying, the homelessness strategy that Colin Cormack created was a strategy to create homelessness. That is one of the reasons why I asked the question in the way that I asked about accountability. And I shall come back to that in an updated form today. I'm also referring here to the tenants and residents of one estate in Tower Hamlets whom I have been helping with the democratic and representational needs in the context of the council's transfer of housing stock over 10 years or so previously. This is a reference to the Trahon Close, London E1, near the Balance Road, London E1, who are by no means the only part of the Tower Hamlets community whose rights have been very seriously undermined and or denied by the organizations to whom control of their housing stock had been transferred my question to the cabinet on the 3rd of July 2013, and the premise of it were based on the factual foundations that had been built on the evidence from the tenants and residents of the Trahon Close and from others like them elsewhere in Tower Hamlets. Finally, I'm here also referring to my question as I presented it to the full council on the 26th of June 2013. In that presentation, I had an option for a supplementary question which I could not take to the necessary conclusion. That was because the meeting was suspended for a few minutes about the filming of the proceedings when I was still on my feet and had just begun the process to ask Rabina Khan a question over her repeating an answer that I had neither sought nor could accept as addressing my question as it was put to the council. Now, Rabina Khan was in post for 5 calendar years as the member in Lutfur Rahman's so-called cabinet at the expense of housing. And when I say at the expense of housing, I literally mean that Rabina Khan caused serious problems, housing problems. And she has been in denial. She has not apologized for the dishonesty and the misleading statement she made during the whole of the 5 years that she was there. She has not apologized to me for lying to me, and she has not apologized to the community for lying to the community. Rabina Khan's wrongdoing could only have been possible by Lutfur Rahman allowing her to tell lies as part of his kind of purpose and aims. And Rabina Khan apparently has now joined another political party, but that is a smokescreen. She has not denounced, she has not distanced herself from, and she has not disowned any of the wrongs done by Lutfur Rahman as the mayor, or any of the wrongs done by the regime with Lutfur Rahman in post as the elected mayor within Quds. So, although she has joined the Liberals, she has not changed her outlook or attitude about Tower Hamlets on anything from any position she held when she was, by all accounts, personally the closest member of Lutfur Rahman's cabinet to Lutfur Rahman. And she is on the record as having publicly acknowledged that fact, that everything she became politically, everything she had, according to her claim, achieved, her claim as she spoke on the 30th of April 2015, which is the week after Richard Mori, the election commissioner, ousted Lutfur Rahman from that post. And Rabina Khan spoke of her gratitude and her debt to Lutfur Rahman on the 30th of April 2015 at a gathering held at the Water Lily in the Mile End Road, London, E1. So Rabina Khan knew about the corruption and the conspiracy and the criminality by Mike Tyrrell and Steve Hill, because I told her so. In writing, I told her, as well as I told Lutfur Rahman, as well as I told Alibur Chaudhry. So Rabina Khan, being in post in the name of housing, that is at expense of the housing needs and housing services owed to the community, but not delivered to the community, had, as the councillor member of the cabinet, a direct relevance to ask questions about the allegations being made at the time against Colin Cormack and against Steve Hill. Steve Hill, over his conspiracy in fictitiously creating serial housing benefit blockades and stoppages, and Colin Cormack lying on every aspect of housing. Now, as I have made clear at the beginning of this Khoodeelaar television channel, dedicated, detailed discussion of the evidence of the Tower Hamlets Council's corruption and criminality will be broadcast and recorded. This is one of those dedicated evidential programs. So everything being said here is a summarized kind of representation of the full extent of the evidence and the facts. I repeat, Rabina Khan lied to me about everything that I told her about. I never told her anything that was not true. I never told her anything that was not factually verifiable. I never told her anything because of any reason other than the fact that they were true and were most serious. Rabina Khan never answered my questions. Rabina Khan never answered my emails. And Rabina Khan never explained why she never answered my questions, never answered my emails, and never, when she even sat down with me, allegedly, to discuss this, she never went through the facts. The fact that she produced one piece of criminality conducted by Mike Tyrrell at a meeting showed that Rabina Khan was intentionally lying to me. Now, anyone viewing this and doing this for the first time should know that this particular update and this examination of the evidence is linked to the fact that an employee in the mayor's office, so-called Tower Hamlets Council, called Afsana Begum, has been charged 6 years after she did the wrongs alleged with 3 counts of fraud in obtaining a council nominated social housing flat for herself. Now, this Afsana Begum was in correspondence with me during the same year, 2013. Not because I had addressed anything to her, because I neither knew her at the time, I still don't know her personally, but I know the fact that she is the daughter of somebody I knew. Now, Afsana Begum sent me several emails on behalf of Ohid Ahmad and on behalf of the council and the mayor's regime. And whatever she sent to me from her own personally named email address on the council's internet portal, whatever Afsana Begum sent me were lies. Whoever wrote it, I don't know. But she sent me lies because I know what the truth is and was. And the fact that she has been now 6 years later, not connected with anything she sent to me, but 6 years after she obtained the social housing flat for herself. Raises the question, the least question is, what was she doing? It doesn't matter whether she denies and vigorously denies this malicious allegation, as she's calling it. The fact is that the allegation has been made and made official. That does not excuse the other racists and other criminals in the council. So anyone viewing this needs to be told that this is discussing one of the London local councils in the east end of London, London Borough of Tower Hamlets. And the significance of this council in the context of the migration into Britain is that it has, Tower Hamlets Borough has got, if not the, but one of the most kind of diverse populations, and one of the biggest numerical kind of presence until very recently was the Bangladeshis. If not the first one, it is now most certainly the second one in demographic terms, in numbers. So for the Bangladeshis, who are essentially migrants, who in the large numbers came in the 70s, are economic migrants, not political migrants. And the fact that they are economic migrants has a significant impact on what they're doing and what they're kind of not doing right. The correct implication of the Bangladeshis' presence in Tower Hamlets in significant numbers has been the positive image of the community and its reflection positively on the image of Bangladesh itself. And the impact of the Bangladeshis in Tower Hamlets in creating a positive image for Bangladesh, which otherwise didn't have a positive image for most of its time, is very significant. In fact, it is so significant that I take it upon myself to demand that all Bangladeshis, like Afsana Begum and the other 3 councillors who have been prosecuted on housing fraud and been jailed, apologize to the community for their behavior, because they have brought the Bangladeshi background community into disrepute, quite apart from the fact that they brought the other wider community into disrepute. And regardless of what happens with the prosecution of Afsana Begum on this occasion, it is absolutely undeniable that she did take advantage of the fact that she was employed in the council and she had connections. She cannot deny that. She may say that she is no longer in direct contact with the Lutfur Rahman or Ohid Ahmad, but that does not mean that she didn't have contacts with them. The fact that she wrote to me a number of communications which are all lies shows that she is not very concerned about the accuracy, the truthfulness, and the veracity of what she may send to people. As far as I'm concerned, she sent me lies, and they were beneath the standard acceptable as part of the benefit of the doubt. Now, how did the series of stages that she went through in getting herself nominated for a social housing flat when she was aged 24 to 25 or 23 to 25 years old. The stages she went through clearly were not being monitored. And the reason why they were not being monitored is simple, because the entire council regime was engaged in one kind of corruption, abuse, misuse, illegality, or another. So get that. So the fact that Colin Cormack could lie about me and lie to me, the fact that Steve Hill lied about me and my legal rights were not accidents, were not exceptions. They were the norms. They were the things that Colin Cormack and Steve Hill did and are still doing. If Cormack hadn't left our Hamlets Council in 2015, he would still be at it. And as I was saying earlier, Colin Cormack was sent to meet me in April or May 1996 by the then chief executive of the Hamlets Council, a woman called Sylvie Pierce. Now, Sylvie Pierce only could send Colin Cormack to meet me at an address of my choosing if she felt that my case was very strong, which it was, which it is even stronger now. And the fact that I told Colin Cormack off for being a liar shows that I had no problem in identifying his lying at that very early stage. And instead of accepting the basic duty to stop lying, Cormack never stopped lying. And even in his current job, which he's holding since he left Tower Hamlets Council in 2015, Colin Cormack is still lying. And the evidence against Cormack is only increasing by every passing minute because of the impact, the damaging impact on the work and the rights that his lying and criminality have been having all these years on. So count back to July 1996, when 2 months after I met Colin Cormack for the first time in the Commercial Street in London E1, which was the office at the time of the Tower Hamlets Race Equality Council. In July, I got involved in organizing a campaign against racist attacks that had been made against a family of Bangladeshis living in the old Bethnal Green Road area. And that's when the racist Mike Tyrrell, still employed in the council's, Tower Hamlets Council's housing department, took it upon himself to target me for what he must have thought daring to organize a campaign against racist attacks. And Tyrrell decided to punish me by causing me eviction from my council flat at the time in revenge against my organizing a campaign against racist attacks on a Bangladeshi family. So that is Mike Tyrrell and Steve Hill conspired repeatedly and stopped my housing benefit And that gave Mike Tyrrell the pretext to say that I was in arrears. I wasn't in arrears because I had not broken the law and I had not stopped paying anything, because the housing benefit was paid directly to the council itself at the time. And this pattern continued for 15 years up to 2011, when Tyrrell got enough pretexts created for him by Steve Hill so that he could get me evicted from my flat in 2011. All of these events were made known to Rabina Khan in the year of the eviction, which is 2011. All these facts were made known to Lutfur Rahman. All these facts were made known to Alibor Chaudhry. And with the exception of Alibor Chaudhry, because he wasn't doing anything of his own, he was doing only what he was told by Lutfur Rahman to do. So Alibor Chaudhry's role was different, but that did not justify his lying to me on behalf of Lutfur, because I told him that everything I was telling him and Lutfur was the truth, and everything Lutfur was saying in reply was a lie. So Lutfur Rahman and Rabina Khan lied. Not once, not twice, but for a very long time. Because their lying started with the details of the THCH lying and Steve Hill's lying being activated against me in 2011 in that context, in the context of the eviction. That eviction. And this went on until Lutfur Rahman was ousted by Richard Morey in April 2015. And Rabina Khan is still lying. So if you look at the positions these people held in the council, you can clearly see that if the holders of those positions were liars, then any junior post-holding employee, such as Afsana Begum, who was only in her early 20s when she joined the council, I mean, she could do anything that suited their particular relationship or dynamics. And they would not bat an eyelid. They would not find that wrong at all, because they were themselves lying and telling lies and breaking laws. To any student of jurisprudence, to anyone who studies a legal system, to anyone who studies and understands the objective purposes of legislation, lawmaking, it would be quite clear that despite the fact that in practice, many of the laws passed are ignored, but it is a separate thing from the purpose behind any, let's put it in the brackets, reforming piece of legislation about any aspect of society. And these, of course, include the Human Rights Act, which is a direct result of the UK's signatory status internationally, and similar other kind of legislations that have been prompted by the UK's international declarations to the effect that it was going to liberalize its otherwise previously corrupt and illiberal and oppressive and inaccessible legal system. So if there were legislation for meeting housing needs, if there were legislation for eliminating inequality, if there were legislation to eradicate poverty and discrimination, disadvantage, then any council like Tower Hamlets making routine pledges to be dedicated to these purposes should be run with an eye on the compliance with those aims and purposes. Now, by all evidence, by all accounts, I have been engaged consistently for decades in advocating rights and advocating causes and advocating arguments that have much later been recognized in some legislation, some declarations. So I predate those liberalizing international treaties and charters, most of them. So I should have been treated as a rare member of the population in Tower Hamlets who deserved all the support within the law that the council could provide. Far from it. The council cliques and crooks made it their purpose to obstruct me. And what did they obstruct? I do the work, legal work, every day for people. And I do work that would not be possible for these people to obtain from any other person, whether it's a QC, whether it's a barrister, whether it's a solicitor. And I shall be going back to diagnosing the corruption of the licensed law traders in due course. I have, in the last 50 years, saved people from going to jail for long terms for all kinds of allegations. And I've saved people from being denied their basic rights in welfare, in social security, in housing. And I have helped people get their children accepted by the schools or the local education authority concerned in the way that would help their children's education within the formality, that is, not going into the kind of philosophical discussion about what constitutes education. And I have been regularly stopping people from being deported or otherwise kind of sent out of the UK, solely by following a whole variety of constitutional law and civil law and other legal options and declarations and frameworks. And if Lutfur Rahman, in his statement to me on the 20th of September 2012, was telling the truth, that I should have been the first MP, he was meaning the Bangladeshi first MP, and I should have been the MP, mayor in Tower Hamlets, not him. If that were in any way true, because he said also that I had the abilities and all the rest of it, then how was it that he systematically lied to me for 6 calendar years? And how is it possible that he ignored my prediction that this commentary I'm making now today, I was predicting all those years ago that I would have to do that because of his lying. So we shall be continuing this in due course.